Hello, English learners. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our podcast, where we make learning English fun and stress-free. Today, we're tackling a topic that will have you laughing while you learn: the role of humor and jokes in learning English.
That's right, Adam. You might think humour is just about making people laugh, but it actually has some serious benefits when it comes to language learning. From expanding your vocabulary to improving your pronunciation, humour is an incredibly powerful tool.
Exactly. So, whether you're a fan of puns, wordplay, or just enjoy a good joke, this episode is for you. We're going to explore how humor can help you understand English better, feel more confident, and most importantly, have fun while you learn.
So, grab your favourite joke, get comfortable, and let's dive into why laughter really is the best medicine for learning English.
Let's get started.
All right, let's kick things off by discussing why humour is so important in language learning. Adam, why do you think humour plays such a significant role in mastering a new language like English?
Great question, Sophia. Humor might seem like just a fun addition to language learning, but it's actually a very powerful tool. First off, humor has a unique ability to lower stress. When we laugh, our body releases endorphins, those feel-good chemicals that make us relax. And when we're relaxed, we're much more receptive to new information. So, learning English doesn't feel like a heavy task. Instead, it becomes a fun and enjoyable experience.
That's so true. Learning a new language can be overwhelming at times, especially when you're trying to remember complicated grammar rules or new vocabulary. But humour takes that pressure away, making it feel lighter. And let's not forget how humour helps us connect with the language on a deeper level. When you understand a joke, you're not just hearing words, you're absorbing cultural context, idiomatic expressions, and the emotional tone behind the language.
Exactly. And this is why humor is such a great tool for learning English. It exposes you to all kinds of expressions you wouldn't typically find in a textbook. Think about idioms like break the ice or kick the bucket. If you're only learning formal textbook English, you might miss these phrases that native speakers use all the time. Jokes are a perfect way to introduce these expressions in a fun and engaging way.
Absolutely. Humour also teaches us about the nuances of the language. You know, English is full of puns, wordplay, and double meanings. When you hear a joke, you're not just learning new words, you're also learning how those words can change meaning based on context. Take a simple pun, like, I used to be a baker, but I couldn't make enough dough. Not only do you learn the double meaning of the word dough, but you also get an understanding of how humour relies on language patterns and wordplay.
That's a great example. And what's really cool is that jokes often rely on timing, delivery, and context. So, by practicing with humor, you're not just learning what to say, but also how to say it. The way you say something in English can change the meaning of your words entirely. Humor helps you get a feel for intonation, rhythm, and timing, crucial elements of sounding fluent in any language.
Right. Think about how many times jokes are about misunderstandings. Sometimes the humour comes from something that is said in a very specific way. Understanding humour makes you more aware of how even the smallest differences in tone or word choice can affect the overall meaning. Plus, humour in English is often about sarcasm or irony, which can be tricky to understand without context.
Exactly. And let's be honest, one of the hardest parts about learning English is the fear of making mistakes. But humor changes that. When you joke around, it takes the seriousness out of learning. Even if you make a mistake, it's funny. And that actually helps you learn faster because it keeps you motivated. Instead of worrying about sounding perfect, you're enjoying the process, laughing at your mistakes, and moving forward.
Yes, and humour also builds confidence. I've seen so many learners hesitate to speak because they fear being judged for making mistakes. But if they tell a joke and it gets a laugh, whether it's perfectly said or not, they get that immediate positive feedback. And that's the boost that encourages them to keep going.
Exactly, Sophia. It's all about making mistakes in a safe environment. Humor helps learners feel less anxious, which makes it easier to take risks with the language and try out new words or phrases. In fact, making jokes is a fantastic way to practice conversational English. It's more relaxed than just reciting vocabulary lists, and it's a great way to test out new words or phrases in a social setting.
So, to sum it up, humour is important in language learning because it helps reduce stress, creates a more relaxed and enjoyable environment, and encourages you to keep going even when you make mistakes. It also introduces you to cultural nuances, idiomatic expressions, and the hidden meanings behind words. It allows you to practice both the vocabulary and the delivery of the language in real-life contexts.
Exactly. Humor also promotes active listening skills, as you need to pick up on timing, tone, and wordplay to understand a joke. It sharpens your attention to detail and forces you to really focus on how English sounds and feels in conversation.
And let's not forget about how humour can help you connect with others. Jokes, puns, and funny phrases are ways to bond with English speakers. Humour can break down barriers and open doors to richer, more engaging conversations.
So, humor isn't just about making you laugh. It's about learning the language in a way that's more interactive, memorable, and fun. I mean, who wouldn't want to learn English through laughter?
Exactly. So, now that we know why humour is important, let's dive into how you can use it to actually improve your English vocabulary and language skills. Stay tuned for more.
Now that we know why humor is so powerful in language learning, let's dive into something that everyone loves: vocabulary. How exactly can jokes help us expand our English vocabulary, Sophia? Now that we know why humor is so powerful in language learning, let's dive into something that everyone loves: vocabulary. How exactly can jokes help us expand our English vocabulary, Sophia?
Great question, Adam. Jokes are a fantastic way to learn new words, and it's not just about the punchline. Humour often introduces us to vocabulary that we might not come across in formal lessons. Think about puns, wordplay, and double meanings. All of these are great for learning new words in context, which makes them much easier to remember.
Exactly. When you hear a joke, you're not just hearing random words, you're hearing them used in a specific situation. And this situation often involves some kind of twist or play on meaning. Take this joke, for example. I told my computer I needed a break, and now it won't stop sending me Kit Kats.
Haha, that's a good one. But it also teaches you the double meaning of the word break. In one context, it refers to taking a pause, but in the joke, it's also referring to a Kit Kat, the chocolate bar. So, you learn the different meanings of words in context, which is more effective than memorizing a list of definitions.
Exactly. That's why jokes are so powerful. They show you how words can change meaning depending on the situation. And they also introduce you to colloquial language, which is what native speakers actually use in everyday conversation. You might not find these phrases in your grammar book, but they're essential for sounding natural in English.
Absolutely. Let's think about slang for a minute. Many jokes use slang terms that might be unfamiliar to English learners. For example, a joke like, "I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down." Here, impossible to put down is a phrase that means so interesting that you can't stop reading it. It's slang that you might hear from a friend or in a casual setting.
And that's the beauty of humor. It exposes you to language that goes beyond the textbook. You might hear jokes about popular culture, sports, or current events, and those jokes will introduce vocabulary related to those topics. So, humor isn't just about learning new words, it's about learning the context in which those words are used.
Right. And humour also helps you learn word families. For example, take the joke, "Why don't skeletons fight each other? They don't have the guts." Not only does this teach you the word guts, but it also shows you how the word can be used in different contexts. Guts in this joke refers to bravery, but it also refers to the internal organs of the body. You get to see how one word can have multiple meanings and be used in different ways.
Exactly. And this is where humor's context-based learning becomes incredibly helpful. The way words are used in jokes helps you learn them in real-life situations, making it easier to remember them. When you hear a joke, you're not just memorizing the word guts, you're understanding how it functions in different contexts, which is much more useful for conversational English.
And don't forget about wordplay. Wordplay is a huge part of humour, and it often introduces learners to homophones, words that sound the same but have different meanings or spellings. For example, in the joke, "I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down." The word "put down" is part of the wordplay. It's a phrasal verb that means to place something down, but in this context, it also means to stop reading. Understanding this wordplay helps you master phrasal verbs which are common in spoken English.
Exactly. Phrasal verbs are tricky, but jokes break them down in a way that's fun and memorable. Instead of memorizing a list of put phrasal verbs, you learn them in a natural, engaging context where the meaning is clearer.
And humour helps you understand cultural references too. Think about jokes that reference things like holidays, sports, or famous people. These jokes not only introduce you to new words, but also help you understand English-speaking cultures. For instance, a joke like, "Why did the Scarecrow win an award?" Because he was outstanding in his field. Introduces the word outstanding in a way that's both funny and relevant.
That's a great point. Jokes like that help you understand the humor behind certain expressions, and also show you how words are used in everyday language, not just in books. Plus, jokes often rely on timing and delivery, which teaches you how to use words in a rhythm and flow that feels natural.
And don't forget about how jokes help you remember words. When a word is part of a joke, it's attached to a memory or an emotional response. Laughter. This emotional connection makes the word much easier to recall later. That's why jokes are such a fun way to reinforce vocabulary. You're not just learning words, you're associating them with feelings and context.
Exactly. So, in summary, jokes are a fantastic way to learn vocabulary because they introduce new words and phrases in context, help you understand word meanings in different situations, expose you to slang, phrasal verbs, and cultural references, and reinforce vocabulary by making it memorable through humor.
Yes, and all of this makes the learning process so much more engaging. So the next time you're hearing or telling a joke in English, remember, you're not just laughing, you're learning.
Now that we've covered how jokes help with vocabulary, let's dive into something equally important: cultural nuances. Humor is a gateway to understanding the culture behind the language. Sophia, how does humor help English learners understand cultural differences and nuances?
Great topic, Adam. Humor is such a powerful tool for learning about culture because jokes often rely on shared experiences, beliefs, and social norms. When you hear a joke in English, you're not just hearing words, you're also learning what is considered funny in that culture, what's appropriate, what's not, and how humor reflects society's values.
Exactly. For instance, in American humor, you'll often see jokes that rely on self-deprecation, where people make fun of themselves. A joke like, "I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right," plays on the idea of people being stubborn and a bit humorous about it. That kind of humor is deeply embedded in American culture, where there's a long-standing tradition of being able to laugh at yourself.
Yes. And humor often reflects what's happening in a specific culture at a given time. For example, jokes about politics or current events can teach you a lot about a society's values or the general mood of the people. An American joke might be, "I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looked surprised." It might sound simple, but it's playing on how people perceive beauty standards in modern society.
That's a great point, Sophia. Humor can also highlight historical and social contexts. Take British humor, for example. British jokes often rely on sarcasm and irony. So when you hear someone say, "Oh, wonderful, another rainy day in England," it's not just about the weather. It's a playful commentary on how people in the UK view their weather, with a touch of irony. For someone unfamiliar with British culture, This might seem like a simple complaint about the weather, but it's a joke that highlights a certain cultural attitude.
Exactly. And that brings us to language-specific humour, which is also influenced by cultural differences. English-speaking countries have different ways of using humour to address things like race, class, gender, or even the absurdities of daily life. For example, the idea of British understatement is a huge part of British humour. If someone says, "That's a bit chilly today," when it's below freezing, they're using understatement, an ironic humour style that's very specific to British culture.
And let's not forget about slang and regional humor. In different parts of English-speaking countries, humor can take on unique forms based on the region. For example, in the southern United States, you might hear jokes that involve southern hospitality or quirky exaggerations like, "It's hotter than a goat's butt in a pepper patch." It's all about regional expressions that make humor local and relatable.
That's such a great example. And if you're learning English, understanding these kinds of jokes helps you not just with the language itself, but also with the cultural references that come with it. You start to understand the inside jokes and references that native speakers use. For instance, if you're in the US and someone says, "I'm going to the fridge to get a Coke," they might actually mean any soda, not just Coca-Cola, because of how the brand has become a cultural reference.
Exactly. And cultural humor also plays a big role in understanding stereotypes. For instance, jokes that play on stereotypes might seem offensive, but they're often exaggerations or playful commentary on how society sees certain groups. This is important for learners to understand because it can help you avoid misinterpretation when you hear jokes or comments from native speakers.
That's so true. Humour can give us insight into the values and beliefs of a society. For example, jokes about holidays like Christmas often show us how important family, generosity, and traditions are in a particular culture. An American Christmas joke might go, "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, but I'm too busy shoveling the snow to enjoy it." This joke touches on the cultural value of hard work during the holidays while also making fun of the often overlooked hassles.
Exactly, Sophia. And humor also helps us understand how people from different backgrounds perceive one another. The way humor is delivered can reflect societal views on class, gender, or ethnicity. A joke about work, for example, could reflect a specific cultural attitude toward labor, ambition, or leisure time, which may be different in other countries.
So, what's great about learning through humour is that it's interactive. It forces you to think about not just the words, but the context in which those words are being used. And that's how you start to understand the deeper meanings, like sarcasm, irony, or subtle social commentary.
Exactly. So, understanding the cultural nuances through humor doesn't just make you a better listener and speaker. It helps you become more culturally aware and sensitive to the underlying meanings behind the language. When you understand the humor, you understand the people who speak that language more deeply.
And let's face it, Adam, being able to understand a joke in English makes you feel more like you belong to the culture. It's one of the fastest ways to feel integrated into English-speaking environments, whether it's hanging out with friends or watching a TV show.
Absolutely. So, in summary, humor is a gateway to understanding cultural nuances because it reflects shared values, social norms, and specific cultural experiences. Through humor, you get to see how language is used in real life, everyday contexts, and learn about the cultural attitudes and traditions that influence it. All right, now that we've explored how humor helps with vocabulary and cultural nuances, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how humor can actually improve your pronunciation and fluency in English. Sophia, can humor really play a role in this?
Absolutely, Adam. Humour is not only great for understanding language, but it also works wonders for improving your speaking skills. When we laugh at a joke or tell one ourselves, it often involves a rhythm, tone, and even pauses that are crucial to pronunciation and fluency. Let's break that down.
Right. Let's start with intonation. Intonation refers to the rise and fall of your voice while speaking, and it plays a huge role in how natural you sound. In jokes, especially with puns or punchlines, there's often a noticeable change in intonation. For example, when telling a joke like, "Why don't skeletons fight each other? Because they don't have the guts," the way you deliver the punchline is key to the humor.
Exactly. You want to pause just before the punchline, maybe even change your tone a bit to build anticipation. That pause and shift in tone are things we use in everyday conversation too. When you practice telling jokes or reacting to humor in English, you're naturally training your intonation and emphasis, which helps your speaking sound more fluent and engaging.
And it's not just about the punchline, right? Humor often involves pauses and emphasis on certain words. Take this joke. I used to play piano by ear, but now I use my hands. Notice how the emphasis on the word hands adds humor, and the pause before the punchline is essential. In real conversations, these small shifts in rhythm and timing help you sound more confident and fluent.
Exactly. And speaking of timing and rhythm, jokes often force you to practice flow, how you link words together naturally. In English, we have connected speech where sounds blend together in a smooth flow. For example, if you say, "I want to go," it might sound like "I want to go." The rhythm and natural blending of sounds is essential in making your speech sound more fluent. Jokes often give you the perfect chance to practice this because you're mimicking how native speakers deliver humor.
Right, that's such an important point. Let's not forget about stress. Not the stress we feel, but the way we stress certain words in sentences to make them sound more natural. Humor often plays with stress to add meaning. Take the joke. I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looked surprised. In this case, the word looked is stressed to create the punchline, showing how stress on different words can change the meaning.
Yes, and it helps you focus on how important it is to get the right emphasis in English. Stressing the right words can make a big difference in understanding, and humor teaches you to do that while having fun. And as you practice with jokes, you'll start to feel more comfortable using natural stress patterns without thinking too much about it.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about fluency, the ability to speak smoothly and easily. Humor is a great tool to help you get comfortable with speaking, even if you're a little nervous. When you tell a joke, you're focusing on getting the timing right, making the punchline hit at just the right moment, and using the right rhythm and tone. That's like speaking practice, but in a low-pressure, fun way.
Exactly. And what's awesome is that jokes give you the chance to practice spontaneous speech. You have to think quickly to understand or deliver a joke, and that makes you quicker at thinking in English overall. Whether you're reacting to something funny or telling a joke yourself, you're training your brain to process language on the spot, which improves your overall fluency.
Right. Humor also encourages you to practice faster speech. Often, when you're telling a joke, the punchline comes quickly, and you have to keep up with the rhythm. It helps you practice speaking at a natural speed, which is essential for sounding fluent. Over time, this helps you get more comfortable with natural conversational pacing.
And because humor is so interactive, it gets you used to speaking in real-life situations. Jokes are often conversational, which means you're practicing casual language and slang, things you'd encounter when chatting with native speakers. Humor in this sense bridges the gap between textbook language and how people actually speak.
Definitely. And for learners who are shy or nervous about speaking, jokes create a comfortable way to practice spontaneous conversation without the pressure. It's more fun than traditional speaking exercises, and the more you practice speaking with humor, the more confident you'll feel.
So true. Plus, humor is a great way to learn pronunciation and fluency naturally. You're learning in a stress-free, enjoyable way, and over time, this builds your confidence in speaking English without even realizing it.
All right, let's talk about something that many learners struggle with: language learning anxiety. You know, that nervousness or fear that comes with trying to speak a new language. Sophia, can humor help us deal with this anxiety?
Absolutely, Adam. Humor is one of the best ways to cope with anxiety, and it's especially effective in language learning. When we're anxious about speaking a new language, we tend to overthink everything: grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary. But humor allows us to step back, relax, and take the pressure off ourselves.
That's such a great point. For many learners, the fear of making mistakes or not sounding correct can be overwhelming. But with humor, you're essentially giving yourself permission to laugh at your mistakes instead of stressing over them. And let's face it, we all make mistakes when learning a language.
Exactly. When we laugh at ourselves, it creates a more relaxed environment where mistakes are seen as part of the process, not something to fear. Humor helps you break through that mental barrier. Think about this. If you tell a joke and mispronounce a word, you'll likely laugh it off and keep going. That's much easier than feeling embarrassed and then stopping yourself from speaking.
Right. And humor is also a great way to deal with embarrassment. When you do mess up, instead of feeling self-conscious, you can laugh at your mistake and turn it into a joke. For example, if you mix up a word in English and it changes the meaning, you could make a joke about it. I meant to say, "I'm feeling great," but I accidentally said, "I'm feeling grapefruit." Well, at least I'm fruity.
Ha ha ha, that's a good one, Adam. By turning your mistakes into funny moments, you take away their power to cause stress. You also show others that you're comfortable with imperfection, which is really important. After all, language learning is a journey, and it's all about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And think about this. Humor is also a great way to connect with others. When you make a mistake and laugh about it, others will likely laugh with you, creating a bonding experience. This makes language learning feel more like a community effort rather than a solitary or intimidating task.
That's so true. Humor helps you feel more connected to the people around you, whether they're fellow learners or native speakers. It also helps reduce social anxiety. You're not constantly worried about speaking perfect English because you're focused on enjoying the process rather than being perfect.
And humor can also shift your mindset about language learning. Instead of thinking of it as something stressful or difficult, you start to see it as something fun. Humor helps you stay motivated because you're not bogged down by anxiety. You're enjoying the journey and learning in a more relaxed way.
Exactly, and in a sense, humor can help you embrace mistakes as a part of learning. Instead of viewing errors as failures, you start seeing them as opportunities for growth. Humor takes the sting out of those moments when you get a word wrong or misinterpret something. It allows you to laugh, learn, and move forward.
So true. Plus, humor works wonders for confidence. The more you laugh at yourself and find humor in your language mistakes, the more you'll feel comfortable speaking. And with that comfort comes fluency. The less anxious you are, the more likely you'll be to speak up and practice.
And let's not forget, humor also helps you relax. When we're relaxed, we learn more effectively. The tension we feel when we're anxious can actually block our ability to absorb information. But when humor is involved, it shifts our mindset and makes the whole learning experience more enjoyable.
Exactly. Humor lightens the mood and helps you stay positive throughout your language learning journey. It's like a little mental reset, allowing you to push through your anxiety and focus on having fun.
So, in summary, humor is a powerful tool to overcome language learning anxiety. It helps you laugh at mistakes, shift your mindset, build confidence, and connect with others. It's an essential ingredient for making language learning feel like a fun, enjoyable adventure instead of a stressful challenge.
All right, let's get into the fun part. Practical ways to use humor in your language learning journey. So far, we've talked about how humor can help with things like vocabulary, pronunciation, and overcoming anxiety. But how exactly can learners bring humor into their daily practice?
Great question, Adam. There are so many ways to use humor in learning English, and the best part is, it makes the whole process feel more engaging and less like a chore. Let's start with something simple: watching comedy shows and movies.
I love that. Comedy shows, movies, and even stand-up specials are perfect for learning natural language and expressions. They give you a chance to hear how people really speak in everyday conversations, not just textbook English. Plus, comedy often uses slang, idioms, and puns, which are essential to sounding more like a native speaker.
Exactly. And if you're watching something with subtitles, it's a great way to see the words written out while also hearing the pronunciation. You can pause and rewind to catch funny phrases or jokes that you didn't understand the first time. This lets you improve your listening and comprehension skills, and at the same time, learn how humor works in a different culture.
And then there's the obvious one, telling jokes in English. It may feel a bit intimidating at first, but telling jokes can seriously help you practice your speaking skills. Start by learning some simple jokes in English. You could memorize a few classic ones, or even start with jokes you know in your own language and try to translate them.
Yes, and don't worry if your jokes don't always land perfectly. The goal is to get comfortable with the language. As you practice telling jokes, you'll improve your pronunciation, intonation, and even your timing, all of which are essential for sounding fluent. Plus, humor helps you think quicker on your feet and feel more confident.
And another fantastic way to use humor is by reading humorous books or comics. There are so many great books out there, written in simple English with jokes, puns, and fun storylines. Comics, like The Simpsons or Garfield, are also great because they often have visual jokes that reinforce the language.
Totally. And what's awesome about comics is that they make learning feel less like studying. The pictures help you understand the context of the joke, and it's a fun way to pick up new phrases and expressions. The humor in books and comics often uses wordplay, so you're learning different meanings of words in a natural, enjoyable way.
And let's not forget about social media. Following accounts or pages that post funny content in English can also be a fun way to learn. There are so many pages dedicated to humorous memes, viral videos, and funny tweets. You can read and laugh while picking up common phrases and expressions that are used in day-to-day conversations.
Exactly, Adam. Memes are great because they're often based on current events or pop culture, so they expose you to more informal language. You'll see how humor reflects how people really talk in the real world. No filters. Plus, you get to learn slang and expressions in a way that feels natural and up-to-date.
Another cool way to use humor is by participating in language learning groups or forums online, especially those that focus on lighthearted content. You can join communities where learners post funny language mistakes or share humorous experiences of learning English. It's a great way to learn from each other and see that everyone makes mistakes and laugh about it.
I love that. Sharing funny mistakes or experiences shows you that learning English doesn't have to be perfect. It can be fun and full of laughs. And those mistakes often teach you the most because they stick in your memory. Plus, you get to laugh at yourself and with others, which takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And another practical tip is to use humor in your writing. For example, you could try writing a funny story or a short skit in English. This practice will help you experiment with sentence structures, new vocabulary, and creativity, while also using humor to make it more engaging.
That's a great way to build your writing skills and your ability to express ideas in English. Writing funny stories allows you to practice sentence flow, vocabulary usage, and even experiment with humorous techniques, like puns or exaggeration.
And if you're looking for a fun challenge, how about creating a funny podcast or vlog in English? You can share jokes, tell funny stories, or react to humorous content, all while practicing your speaking skills. This also gives you a reason to keep speaking regularly in English, which is key to improving fluency.
I love that idea. It combines humor with regular speaking practice, which is the perfect recipe for building confidence. And you can always invite others to share their jokes or funny stories, so it becomes a group activity that keeps everyone engaged and learning together.
So, to summarize, there are plenty of ways to use humor in learning English. Whether it's watching comedy shows, telling jokes, reading funny books, following memes, participating in language learning communities, or even creating your own funny content. The best part is that humor keeps learning enjoyable and relaxed, which helps you stay motivated and confident.
Exactly. So, don't be afraid to laugh at yourself, tell a joke, or embrace some lightheartedness in your English practice. It makes the learning process not only effective, but also super fun.
All right, let's dive into one of the fun parts of using humor to learn English, telling jokes. Jokes are not only a great way to practice speaking, but they also help you get familiar with language structures, wordplay, and even culture. So, Sophia, what are some fun and simple jokes that English learners can use to practice?
Well, Adam, the best jokes for learners are those that use simple vocabulary, common expressions, and sometimes even puns. Let's start with a classic, one that's pretty easy to understand and very popular in English-speaking cultures. Here's one. Why don't skeletons fight each other?
I don't know. Why?
Because they don't have the guts.
Haha, that's a good one. It's simple, but it uses a play on words with guts, meaning both courage and, literally, the internal organs. This is a great example of how jokes use double meanings, and it's something learners can start noticing in everyday language.
Exactly, Adam. Here's another one that uses wordplay, but this time with riddles. Riddles are a fun way to get learners thinking about language in a playful way. Here's a classic riddle for you. What has keys but can't open locks?
What?
A piano.
That's a clever one. It plays on the word keys. We think of keys for opening locks, but a piano also has keys that are totally unrelated to locks. It's a fun way to show how words can have different meanings depending on the context.
Exactly. That's a great way to show learners how words can be used in multiple ways. All right, let's try one more. This one is short and sweet, but very common in English humour. Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
I'm not sure. Why?
Because he was outstanding in his field.
Ha ha ha. That's brilliant. It's a perfect example of a pun, a joke that plays on two meanings of the same word. Outstanding means excellent, but it also means standing outside or standing in the field.
Exactly. Puns are incredibly popular in English humour. They're simple to understand, and they're a fun way to practice different meanings of words. What's cool about these kinds of jokes is that they don't require advanced vocabulary, but they help learners understand how wordplay and context work in English.
So, to summarize, jokes that use puns, riddles, and wordplay are a great way for learners to improve their vocabulary and understanding of the language. Plus, they're fun and easy to remember. You can even practice telling these jokes with friends to get used to speaking English in a relaxed, humorous way.
Exactly, Adam. And what's even better is that you can find jokes in almost any context, whether it's at home, on the internet, or even in English TV shows. Jokes are a fantastic tool for practicing language patterns, pronunciation, and confidence, all while having a good laugh.
Well said, Sophia. And I'd encourage our listeners to start using these jokes in their everyday practice. Don't be afraid to share them with others. You'll improve your English while spreading some laughter at the same time. So, Sophia. We've been talking about all the amazing ways humor can help with learning English, but of course, no method is perfect. Humor has its limitations too, right, Sophia?
Absolutely, Adam. While humour is a fantastic tool, it's important to recognise that it's not a magic solution for every learning challenge. For instance, humour might not be the best approach for every learning situation. Some learners may find it difficult to understand certain types of jokes, especially when they involve cultural references or slang that aren't universally known.
That's a great point. Humor is often deeply tied to culture. For example, a joke that makes perfect sense in the UK or the US might not land well in other countries where the cultural context is different. Have you ever heard a joke that didn't make sense at all when translated into another language?
Oh yes, all the time. It's because humour often relies on shared cultural knowledge. A lot of jokes involve wordplay, references, or even certain ways of speaking that are unique to specific places. So, if someone isn't familiar with that cultural context, they may not get the joke, or worse, they might misinterpret it.
Right. That's why using humor as a learning tool should come with some caution. It can sometimes cause confusion if not used carefully. Plus, Not everyone has the same sense of humor. Some learners might feel uncomfortable with jokes, especially if they're self-deprecating or rely on sarcasm, which can be hard to understand for non-native speakers.
Exactly. And let's not forget that humor alone isn't going to cover all the aspects of language learning. For example, humor might help you with vocabulary and speaking, but it won't necessarily improve your grammar or writing skills. If you focus too much on jokes, you might miss out on other important areas of language learning.
That's true. Humor is just one tool in the toolbox. It's important to balance it with other strategies, like focused grammar practice, listening exercises, and reading. While humor can make the process more enjoyable, you can't rely solely on it to reach fluency.
Exactly. Another limitation is that humor can sometimes be distracting. When you're laughing or joking around, it's easy to lose track of the actual learning goals. If you're not careful, humor can take over and lead to less productive practice time.
And, on top of that, humor can sometimes be misinterpreted. For instance, jokes can sometimes offend or be misunderstood, especially if they involve sensitive topics. That's why learners need to be careful with the type of humor they use and also understand the cultural boundaries of what's funny or appropriate.
Yes, humor is a fantastic tool. But just like anything else, it should be used in moderation and with awareness. It's important to know when to switch back to more serious learning, especially when you need to focus on core skills, like reading comprehension or speaking clearly.
Now let's talk about something really exciting: how humor can actually help you develop a more natural speaking style. Sophia, have you noticed how people who enjoy humor tend to sound more relaxed and confident when speaking English?
Absolutely, Adam. Humor is a fantastic way to break free from overly formal or textbook-like speaking. When you use jokes, puns, or even casual funny stories, you start mimicking how native speakers naturally communicate. It's one of the best ways to sound more fluent and conversational.
Right. Humor often includes slang, idioms, and everyday phrases that are common in casual conversations. By learning and practicing these, you're essentially training yourself to sound more like a native speaker. Can you give us an example, Sophia?
Sure. Let's take a common humorous phrase like, "Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing." This joke uses a pun, but it also introduces you to how words like dressing have multiple meanings. When learners practice these types of jokes, they get used to thinking about words contextually, just like native speakers do.
That's such a good point. And humor often relies on timing, tone, and emphasis, which are key elements of natural speech. When you tell a joke, you're not just focusing on the words, you're also practicing your intonation and rhythm. This can make a big difference in how natural you sound.
Exactly. Plus, jokes are a great way to practice responding quickly in conversations. For example, if someone tells you a joke and you laugh or respond with a witty comment, you're actively participating in a real-life interaction. This kind of quick thinking is essential for fluency.
And another benefit is that humor helps reduce fear of making mistakes. When you're joking around, you're in a more relaxed and playful mindset. You're less likely to worry about small errors, which is a big step toward developing natural fluency.
Yes, Adam. Humor also encourages learners to step out of their comfort zones. Trying to be funny in a second language can be challenging, but it's a fun way to experiment with new vocabulary, expressions, and sentence structures. Even if the joke doesn't land, you're still learning.
Another interesting aspect is how humor reflects personality. When you use humor, you're showing a bit of who you are. This helps learners connect with others more easily, making their conversations feel authentic rather than rehearsed or stiff.
Exactly. And the best part is that humor doesn't just help you sound natural, it helps you feel natural when speaking English. When you're laughing and having fun, you're more likely to enjoy the process of speaking, which boosts your confidence and reduces anxiety.
All right, Sophia, let's dive into something that many learners find challenging: grammar. It's one of those parts of learning English that can feel really overwhelming. But did you know that humor can actually help with understanding and remembering complex grammar rules?
Absolutely, Adam. Grammar doesn't have to be boring or intimidating. When you use humour, it can turn dry, complex rules into something fun and memorable. For example, have you ever heard jokes or funny sentences designed to illustrate grammar points?
I have, and they really stick with you. Like this classic example to explain commas, "Let's eat, Grandma," versus "Let's eat, Grandma." The difference in meaning is hilarious, but also emphasizes the importance of punctuation. It's a funny way to show learners why commas matter.
Exactly. Humour creates a mental image or an emotional reaction, which makes it easier for your brain to retain the information. Here's another example. When teaching verb tenses, some teachers use funny sentences like, "I used to be indecisive, but now I'm not so sure." It's a humorous way to explain how used to expresses a past habit.
That's brilliant, Sophia. And the great thing about these funny examples is that they're not just entertaining, they also encourage critical thinking. When learners laugh at a joke or a quirky sentence, they're also processing the grammar behind it.
Exactly. Another way humour helps is through wordplay. For example, jokes that rely on incorrect grammar can teach you the correct usage. A popular one goes, "Your future, your past, and your present walk into a bar." It was tense. It's a pun, but it also reinforces the concept of verb tenses in a memorable way.
That's a great example, and I think learners can also benefit from creating their own funny sentences or jokes. When you actively think about how to make something funny, you're engaging with the grammar rules on a deeper level.
Yes, it's such a creative way to learn. Plus, when learners share these jokes or sentences with others, they're practicing speaking and reinforcing their grammar skills at the same time. Humour turns grammar practice into something social and interactive.
And let's not forget about humorous grammar videos and memes. The internet is full of funny grammar mistakes that have gone viral. For example, signs that say things like, "No smoking, pets, or bicycles allowed inside." These teach you how improper punctuation or structure can completely change the meaning of a sentence.
That's so true. Memes and funny images are fantastic tools because they're visual and humorous, making grammar concepts easier to grasp and remember. They also show how real-life examples of grammar mistakes can be both educational and entertaining.
So, to sum up, humor makes grammar less intimidating and much more engaging. Whether it's through jokes, funny sentences, or even memes, it helps learners connect with the rules in a way that feels natural and fun.
Exactly. If you're struggling with grammar, try looking for humorous examples online, or better yet, create your own. You'll find that the laughter makes the learning stick, and you might even enjoy the process.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the role of humor and jokes in learning English. We've covered so much ground today, from how humor helps you learn vocabulary and grammar, to how it can reduce anxiety, improve fluency, and even help you connect with cultural nuances.
Exactly, Adam. Humour is such a powerful tool for making language learning fun and effective. It turns something that can feel overwhelming into an enjoyable experience. Whether it's telling a joke, watching a funny show, or creating your own puns, the possibilities are endless.
We hope you found these segments helpful and inspiring. If you've been hesitant to use humor in your English learning, now's the time to give it a try. Remember, it's not just about laughing. It's about unlocking new ways to connect with the language and the people around you.
And don't forget, humour is personal, so find what makes you laugh. Explore comedy shows, funny podcasts, or even memes. The key is to have fun while learning, because when you're having fun, you're more likely to stick with it and succeed.
Before we go, we'd love to hear from you. Do you have a favorite English joke or funny story? Have you tried using humor in your language learning? Share it with us in the comments or send us a message. Who knows, we might feature your story in a future episode.
Yes, your feedback means the world to us. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. Tell your friends, your classmates, or anyone else learning English. They might just thank you for introducing them to a whole new way of learning.
Thanks for joining us on this laughter-filled journey through English learning. Keep practicing, keep laughing, and remember, every small step counts toward your fluency goals.
Take care, stay motivated, and we'll see you in the next episode of our podcast. Until then, keep learning and keep laughing.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next time. Thank you.